Now, I know that last week Dave suggested I might depart from the Jacob narrative that's been featured in the lectionary readings, so I'm sorry to disappoint those who had high hopes for that. But the good news in that case is that today I won't be focusing so much on Jacob as I will on Leah. In this story, we find Leah in a similar position to many women of her time, traded and objectified like chattel, portrayed as silent and passive. She's being used by her father as a pawn to trick Jacob into marrying both her and her sister, whom we read Jacob truly loves. And then when it comes time for Jacob to marry Rachel as promised, surprise! Following a night of biblical consummation, Leah is revealed by the morning sun's rays. Now, this reads as nothing short of a soap opera with all the twists and turns and sibling rivalry and love triangles and cruel fathers. But it is hard for even the most intentional writer to quash the spirit of a woman. The author shows us a flash of humanity, an ounce of presence. They seem to leap from the story, leaving all other details in the desert dust. Leah's eyes. Lovely, we read. Well, that's what our translation says anyway, but other Bibles say weak. You could also translate the original Hebrew word rakot as tender or delicate. It's unclear whether this means Leah's eyes were weary from sorrow and sand, or gentle and soft. We can surmise and argue for generations about what Leah's eyes looked like and why. But today I'm less interested in what Leah's eyes looked like. I want to know what she saw with them. Leah's eyes ground what is an otherwise turbulent story. They are the calm eyes of the storm, if you will. So what exactly is her story? Wouldn't you like to know? Perhaps it begins like this: I am here, and so are you. Now, as many of you know, 13 of us recently spent a week together in Abiquiu, New Mexico. And AJ and I spent the 2 weeks prior to that in Santa Fe with our dogs and our friends. And I've spent much of the last month on trail. Now, as much as I enjoy hiking and love being outdoors, being on trail is something that is rather challenging for me. I feel slow. I get winded. The people I tend to hike with are fast. And my usual MO is to get things done. But it's a lost cause for me to try to be a type A hiker. So then I start to beat myself up. You're not going fast enough, Lindsay. Why are you so out of breath? It's because you're out of shape. You're holding everyone back. But nobody wins while I bludgeon myself on trail. My friends and I are left with a self-loathing companion, and the trail becomes something to dominate rather than appreciate. But in New Mexico, I began a new spiritual practice. I hushed myself and invited the land around me to speak, to tell me what it sees and what it has seen. If I give myself up, I whispered, will you bear witness to me? It is not a surprise that I stepped into this ancient wisdom in a part of the world where indigenous influence is palpable. There is a bond between land and people in New Mexico. So what did the land say in return? Well, she had very little commentary on my inner demons. She didn't care about how fast I climbed her mountains. What she said to me is this: I am wild, and so are you. When we arrived at Ghost Ranch, we crested over a hill and into a valley that divulged the red and purple rocked mesas seen in many of Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings. Now, you can describe Ghost Ranch in as much detail as you want. It's a 41,000-acre Presbyterian retreat center in New Mexico, and so on and so forth. But the truth of it is, there's nothing that words or photos or paintings can do to contain the place. O'Keeffe must have wrestled with this, as a quote of hers prominently displayed declared, "God said that if I painted the mountain enough, I could have it. But I'd wager that she was the one who was had." Like in our story today, the writer notes how Jacob sees Leah's eyes. But it is Jacob who is beheld in the end. Now, Jacob might have done well to pause and consider that he was both witness and witnessed. In Hinduism, Sakshi is a Sanskrit word that means witness, but it also means supreme being and ego. And it's feminine. I love that. The word is derived from the roots sa, meaning with, and aksha, meaning senses, eyes, or spiritual wisdom. This wisdom is the insight a yogi gains through awakening their inner witness, or sakshi. In Hindu philosophy, sakshi refers to the concept of pure awareness, in which the yogi witnesses the world, but does not get involved or become affected by worldly things. Wow. If this sacred wisdom is true, if witness permeates the human eye and human ego, as well as God and spirit, then this sensation of being simultaneously seer and seen, witness and witnessed, is possible. And if so, we might take care to consider not just our own witness of God, but also the reverse, God's witness of us. Just as Leah's eyes ground us in this chaotic story, God's eyes too offer wisdom and peace in the midst of a chaotic life. Just as we change Jacob's story when we consider what Leah sees, so too do we change our own stories when we consider what God sees. And what does God see? Well, perhaps that testimony begins and ends like this: I am love, and so are you. And so, if you're up for it, here's your spiritual homework for the week. You'll see on the cover of your bulletin this morning, you may have been wondering about this the entire time I've been preaching, an image of John Cusack from the seminal coming-of-age film Say Anything. In the movie, he holds a boombox over his head and blasts the Peter Gabriel song, In Your Eyes, to his love interest. So this week, and you can do this publicly or privately, your choice, I want you to take your tablet or your smartphone and turn it all the way up and hold it above your head and listen closely to the words and serenade God with Peter Gabriel. Imagine how God sees you, sees all of us in her eyes. May you behold the beauty of all good things, and may you be held by God. Amen.